Welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Rising podcast. I am your host, Lisa Hillier, and today I have Juliet Tang on the show with me. And Juliet is a somatic business and polarity mentor. She supports women coaches and practitioners grow and scale their online businesses and increase their body's capacity to receive more money and love from inner ease, spaciousness, pleasure, and resourcefulness. And today's episode is full of so much juiciness. The perfect episode after the polarity series as we dive into the feminine essence, our oracular nature, God restoring union with God, money and men. And it is such a potent episode. So can't wait for you to dive in. If you feel called to share, please write a review. It all helps so much to get these conversations out to a wider audience. And I have launched my Rewilding Roses Apothecary, so please check that out in the show notes. I love homesteading here on the West Coast. I'm a homesteader without a homestead quite yet, but I love making medicine and foraging in the wild abundance that is all around me. So please check that out. There's a 25% discount for all my listeners with the code Phoenix. And let's dive into the episode and sink in with Juliet. Welcome, Juliet. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. It feels like perfect timing, even though we've had to reschedule quite a few times. And so let's start with what has been the journey that has brought you to the work that you're offering the world today.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so honored to be here. And I would say that my work is very multidimensional as my work focuses on business and money, but at the same time, there's always the component of um, supporting women to come into union with the masculine on all levels through internally first through with God, with masculine principles in their businesses, increasing their capacity to receive more money. And usually the indirect result is always more intimacy with men, either in their current marriage or in courtship, as I have a few ladies who are still in courtship. So it's interesting because I remember a past business coach always said to me, our best clients are past versions of who we were. So the past version of me was this ultimate boss babe who was all about mindset, manifestation, working hard, hustling, joining big names of masterminds, and more income and impact. That was just my slogan, more income and impact. I was willing to achieve my goals at the expense of my body, my health, my sanity, and my relationship, which at the time there were so many red flags already. And it was sometime in 2019 when I was initiated through my first wave of feminine awakening. At the time, I came upon this thing called polarity, called masculine, feminine energetics. And my first reaction was, oh, I'm going to just make more money. This is like the new abundance code that I get to crack and embody. The more I deepened into the masculine feminine dynamics, the more I was shown how out of alignment I was with myself, with my body, my womanhood, with men, with God, with the masculine, and with my relationship, with my business goals, success, money, pretty much just every single thing, every single relationship in my life was reflecting back to me how much I was stuck in that goal mode, in that masculine hyper drive of achievement, so much so that I did not even connect with my body and my womanhood. And that initiated a very profound, lifelong process of deepening into my feminine beingness, into my heart, my womb, my feminine soul, uncovering all of these layers of womanhood that I didn't even know existed. And that completely, over the years, this has completely shifted every relationship I have with the masculine, starting with God to my relationship with my business, money, and then also my relationship with my man. And this is why this is the work that I offer to women these days, just because for feminine beings, it feels our growth is never linear. And it's so multidimensional that it's not just about us doing personal development work, but at the same time, it's also about going through our rite of passage into embodied womanhood. And there are just so many phases that come into this embodied womanhood. And I feel this is something that God has initiated me to do. And this is something that I feel so passionate with in terms of just sharing it with other women, just because I've seen that globally more and more women are going through this type of initiation and awakening. And there is a true need for us to come into that internal union first before we can externalize this type of being in synergetic, loving, and harmonious relationship with the masculine and being his receiving vessel.
Beautiful. What does that internal union look like? Can you untangle internal union a little bit?
Absolutely. So for me, the way that I approach internal union is I know in a polarity space there's the teachings of we are 50% masculine and 50% feminine. So depending on what we need to do or be, we can either shift into our feminine beingness, which is, oh, I get to relax, I get to have fun, I get to be in my radiance. But if I have a deadline or have a launch or I need to do something, I need to shift into the masculine energy so that I can do and accomplish. So that was actually my initial embodiment of internal union before I started deepening into my relationship with God. And what I have shifted into is a paradigm that I am always internally 100% in my feminine essence, which means I am always the vessel and the womb that is here to receive his penetration. It doesn't mean that there is no masculine in my life. However, when I need to do something, when I need to accomplish something, rather than seeing I am kind of like yo-yoing between the feminine and the masculine energies, I am just allowing myself to be moved by God, moved by the highest masculine, moved by the father warrior, king beloved energy. And as he is moving through me, I am still taking action from my openness, receptivity. And at the same time, I am allowing myself to receive whatever the fruit of that union is. So that shift of paradigm was really crucial for my own health and energy, just because I found when I was constantly swinging back and forth between feminine and masculine, it almost felt like I was not anchored in the full beingness of my femininity and also in my heart and womb, because there were times that I needed to wear the hat of, oh, I'm masculine right now, I need to take action, versus the more it is that I have been on a journey of feminine descent, of going into my heart and womb consciousness. I've discovered that there's never a time that my womb says, okay, so right now I'm going to be a cock and I'm going to be penetrating the world, with my directional penetrative energy. My womb is always holding the consciousness of my womanhood. I am always the vessel. There's never a time that I need to close off and be the sword to penetrate the world. However, there are different states of beingness, of being in my feminine embodiment, where I am either in my full restfulness and my external environment reflects that, or I am still in my full receptivity, but in a what I call a state of embodied active surrender, where I am still fully yielding to the guidance of God, of the highest masculine, yet I am obeying him through taking whatever action that he is telling me to take as I am fully attuned to him, which means I also don't need to close off my heart and my womb and become a sword, but I'm always 100% anchored in my feminine beingness. And I'm just simply allowing him to lead me and to move through me. And I've discovered that this paradigm has truly increased my capacity for masculine penetration and containment because I no longer need to be him. I can always stay in my feminine essence and I can always stay attuned to his sword and his adjustment and his leadership and whatever it is that he wants me to do through moving through me. So there's like a very subtle difference between the two, but I feel for me, this is what internal union is.
It felt like, when I think about the feminine being an image of just relaxing and resting and, in an orchard or fruit trees all around and just lounging in a sundress. That feels like
Mm-hmm.
feminine being. But what it felt like when you were speaking to the subtle difference between the two is almost still staying in that soft energy, but responding to
Yes.
God's leadership as opposed to going out and chasing and being that boss babe and like penetrating the world.
Yes, absolutely. I love how you rephrased it. Um, it's it's beautiful when we can look at our biology, and I feel like we're always rooting back into our bodies. When we look at our biology, the egg always remains an egg. There's never a time that she turns into a sperm. So she is just sitting in her beautiful eggness, in her glory, and she's waiting to be pursued by the by the incoming of all of these sperms that are wanting to chase after her, wanting to penetrate her. And obviously, one penetrates. And when you look at our biology and the way that a woman moves through her pregnancy, which energetically, anytime when we are in that creational potency, wanting to birth something into the world, whether it's a book, a program, a podcast, a piece of art, we go through the same energetic impregnated phases that we go through as if it's a biological pregnancy. So when we look at our feminine biology, that egg will never turn into a sperm. However, she will mobilize and move inside of the body, attach herself to the wall of our womb. And throughout the time period of 9 months, she is going through her own metamorphosis. She's not staying still, just laying around being passive. She is in an active, embodied surrender, going through her metamorphosis because this wisdom is encoded in her DNA to be able to receive that penetration and to be able to transition, right? Slowly the tissues, the cells of the new baby start to form. Slowly over time a human being is created inside of our womb. And when the mother is pushing that baby out of her, she is in total surrender. She is not in the penetrative energy of the sword of I'm going to go out and chase after this. Her body knows exactly what needs to happen, how long the contractions are going to be, how the muscles are going to push so that she can be moved through all of these processes to give birth to that newborn. Energetically, that she is this new mother is in her essence throughout. She has never once turned into the masculine. Yet the union of the feminine and the masculine, right? The egg and the sperm is what has created this new birth. So I always, whenever I feel like, oh my goodness, this is so, like there's so much to untangle here, I always come back to our biology, because this is the blueprint in which God has created us to be moved and to move on earth. Always in our essence, always open in that restful, vulnerable, surrendered state. But it doesn't mean that we don't take action. It simply means that we take a different type of action from a different beingness, and the quality of that action is completely different than if we are to take action from hustle, force, and that tightness in the body.
Yeah. Right now on the planet, we're seeing a big blurring of the lines between
Yeah.
men and women, feminine, masculine. What comes up for you around that as we're like, when we're coming into this union of men and women, the sword, the oracle, the oracular wisdom of the womb, and then the lines are completely crossed, right?
Yeah.
Like men having babies and all that kind of stuff. What feels like the energy behind all of this for you?
Yeah. Such a deep question, Lisa. Oh, the origin of this is really spiritual warfare. And there are so many levels to this warfare that it's truly multidimensional. So, what we're seeing on this planet is the 3D manifestation of the warfare that goes so much deeper than that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what is happening on our planet, and then I'm going to come back more to the origin, just because this is such a nonlinear, multi-layered question. Personally, the more that I do this work, the more that I feel that as women, our true feminine power, and this is a word that is really nuanced, just because we've been conditioned to believe that our power is to be equal, to be the same as men. That type of neutrality, sameness, whatever they can do, we can do, right? That type of thing. But ultimately, our true power really comes from our differences. It comes from our polarity. It comes from both are holding, each is holding the opposite pole. So that when we come into union, he rises and we descend. That type of synergetic dynamics exalt the masculine in him and the feminine in us. And for women, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that our feminine biology, our womb consciousness, the feminine is such a powerful and advanced organic technology that truly has the power to receive any type of masculine penetration, receive his seeds, whether that's conscious or unconscious, an idea or a person. We have the power to multiply, and we have the power to birth whatever it is that we are multiplying within our womb. So when we disconnect women from that primordial feminine consciousness and kind of just treat our bodies as some type of mechanism, we're actually disconnecting women from our true power, from that connection to this energetic. It's almost like there's a type of receptivity that only we hold. And this is the receptivity and surrender that men need from us in union. So when we take away a woman from her openness, her softness, her receptivity, and her connection with her own body, whether it's through birth control pill or telling her that she's exactly the same as men, when a man and a woman come into union, she can no longer feel her own, the depth of her womanhood and her surrender, which means the man can no longer access that level of surrender and receptivity inside of her. And what happens is really the destruction of not just masculinity, the blurred masculinity and femininity on our planet. There is true destruction in sacred union, right? on the outside, it looks like the family unit has been attacked, the father, the mother, and the child. But truthfully, we are no longer in union with the other pole, in which God has designed us to come into union with, in order to be initiated into the depth of our womanhood. Both men, the way that I see is that both men and women initiate each other. We initiate him through the womb. He comes into our womb for that surrender to be received by us unconditionally. We need his sword. We need his adjustment. We need his correction. We need his leadership. So when a man is not in his masculine potency and a woman is disconnected from her feminine essence, there is no union. So on the surface, this is what it looks like. And I would say on the deepest level, this is an attack to the cosmology, to the universe that God has created, which is based on relationship. God has created us to be in relationship with each other and also with him. So when we can no longer access the parts of us that allow us to be in deep, intimate relationship with one another, we automatically stop connecting with him. There's that somatic severance. And this is why I feel like just in the last few years, I've seen more and more women seeking God, wanting a relationship with God. Prior to that, we were so numb and so disconnected that we didn't even know this relationship exists. But now, through this awakening, through the uncovering of the depth of our femininity, we realize that as women, we are such deep, intimate, and relational beings. And there is this part of us that yearns to be in union with men. And then there's also the part of us that yearns to be contained, supported, and guided by God. And this is like an internal family unit that he has encoded inside of us, this yearning for that. So at the end of the day, I see the spiritual warfare on sacred union is here to it's here to alter the way that we relate with one another. It's here to sever relationships, and it's here to impact the type of connection that we are born to have with God, Father, King, beloved, that type of relationship. And the more disconnected we are with all of these masculine principles, the more it is that we're no longer in sovereignty and ownership of our feminine soul, which, going back to what we shared earlier, the feminine is a powerful technology that is here to multiply, that is here to birth. So if we are not consciously allowing rightful penetration and deposit of the seeds from the masculine that is here to protect us and cherish us, but instead, if we are allowing anything, any idea, any agenda to just penetrate us and fill us, then we are automatically losing our sovereignty, giving our power, and allowing ourselves to be used as vessels to birth something on earth that is not sacred. That does not lead back us into the way. So yeah, it's a super big question, but these are the layers that are coming up.
Yeah, no, that was potent with what came through as the different layers that we're really seeing on the planet. It's like it was always maybe there in the underworkings. And we're really seeing the manifestation of that right now. For you, what does that union look like with God? I myself was very much in the goddess culture, probably a year ago, less than a year ago. And there has been this big shift in coming back to the masculine face of God for me.
Yeah.
And what does your journey with that look like? Because there was quite a bit of healing on that path.
Oh, there's so much healing in that. I've noticed, and this is only after I've walked myself through the many phases of this journey, that I used to be very big in the goddess and divine feminine space. And At the time, I didn't know, but after that healing began with the masculine, I realized that the way I related to God was very much coming from my feminine pain body rather than the true power body, which is this embedded yearning for union. We are born to just want Him. This is why relationship is one of the hottest topics anytime, anywhere. And I remember years ago, I was reading Eat, Pray, Love, and the author, Elizabeth, she said she traveled to some of the poorest places on earth, and she was talking to these people. And surprisingly, every single time, they were not talking about survival. They were not talking about money or not being able to properly feed their families. They were talking about relationship. Oh, this man that I'm seeing, he's no longer interested in me. He moved on to someone else. Or like this marriage that I've had, I so much want to go deeper with my husband. We are so enamored by relationship, not by coincidence, but because he has embodied, and I'm going to use God as a he, and I'm going to go on to that part. God has embedded this deep yearning, this thirst for us to seek union, be in union. And even when we're in it, that yearning never stops. And personally, I feel that this is like a North Star, a compass that is inside of our DNA to always be seeking Him and His kingdom and His love, His infinite love and provision. So I was really big in the goddess space. And I was also semi big in the whole I am God, there's no differentiation type of thing. The whole universe revolves around me type of thing. When 2020 came and when I started just witnessing all of the distortions happening in the world to the point like, oh, men can have babies now, and we're birthers, we're no longer women, and people can no longer define what a woman is. It's like, oh my goodness, that this doesn't sound right. And it started a very deep journey of going down the rabbit holes of just researching and examining every single belief that I have ever held. So when I was in that space, I discovered that, um, well, there's actually no, yeah, it's hard to talk about God unless we actually go into. I started relating to God as the Father, and also through Christ as the warrior lover and also King. And I discovered just how much I was in my hyper masculine drive, that I wanted to be him. And I wanted to be the masculine. I wanted to be like the man. I wanted to be God so much so that I completely neglected my feminine essence, my womanhood. I had zero connection with my body at the time, and I had zero connection with my womanhood. And it was through softening into that relationship and learning more about who God is as a person, not just as some type of like vague source energy, that I was invited into one of the most profound, deepest, and most healing relationships that I have ever experienced. Not going to God as, oh, infinite universe, like here's what I want to manifest, but actually to come to Him as a person, as a daughter, as a beloved, and to relate to Him as, you're my father, you're my king, you're I am your bride. That completely shifted every single thing, because that allowed me to truly descend into a level of vulnerability and depth in me that I was not able to access had I just been floating in the space of, there's more ascension, I need to ascend more, I need to be the goddess more, I am the divine, all of these things. And through that relationship, I was able to be reflected back on all of the other relationships that I held in my life at the time, with my partner, with my business, with my money. And I was invited to see just how much I was playing the masculine in every single relationship, that there was zero polarity. Just because the masculine wasn't here, I was here and I was taking over his space, but there was no feminine either. And that was all playing into the depolarization agenda that we've all been a part of in this world. So I feel one of the deepest wounds for all of us, women and men, is the God wound, which is also the father wound is interwoven into the God wound. We are born in a world where our relationship with God has been severed. We don't know who he is. Hence, our feminine design lives in our union with God, with the highest masculine. So if we don't know him, we don't know who we truly are. And when we are so disconnected from our true identity, from our womanhood and the vessel like nature of our femininity, it is so easy to implant ideas and seeds and agendas into us and make us spread the seeds of those. So that God wound.
Okay, we lost each other for a little bit there. So we're going to start with the question again. And I know that different layers will come through. So that's always the interesting part. What is that relationship or coming back to God? What has that journey looked like for you?
Yeah. So I know we were talking about like the goddess and the divine feminine space a bit. And so personally, that was definitely the space that I was in. And on the surface, it felt really glamorous, like, oh, the whole universe revolves around me and my needs and my desires. And for a while, I felt like, oh, that was exactly what was needed. But at the same time, I there was always a part of me that felt something was missing, and I didn't know what that was. Just like in my personal relationship, and I was always coming from that rigid, controlling, more of a masculine place in terms of relating with my partner. There was always this depth that we were unable to dive deeper into, whether it's in our intimacy or just in our emotional type of communication. So when 2020 happened and I started experiencing all of the distortions in our world, I was taken on a journey to truly examine and look at every single thing that I have held dear, that I believed in and invested my energy into. And one of them was God. Prior to that, I never thought I needed God. I never needed anything. It was all about me, me, me. And suddenly I experienced this visceral yearning of, oh my goodness, I'm born to be in a type of relationship that I didn't even know existed. And there is this deep thirst for this relationship, and I didn't know what that looked like. All I know was that I needed I needed that like living water. I needed that like air. And I started going deeper and deeper into deciphering all of these matrices of agendas, lies, webs of distortions in our world. And then the more I saw how everything was distorted, the more I began questioning, what if I am not God? What if I'm not the goddess? Or, like I own the universe. What if I've been wrong all this time? So that created a huge opening for me to dive into, so if I'm not God, who is God? And what is this whole thing all about? And why is it that all of us, especially in the personal development space, have been believing that there is no masculine God, there is only goddess, right? And I'm not saying I relate to God as the Father, as the beloved, but there is that mothering energy in him. There is that I can go to him when I am needing that type of support and nourishment and love. So I began relating to God instead of as the universe or an energy bubble that just worked at my command at the tip of my fingertips. I began to experience some type of humility of, oh, maybe perhaps there is more to this. Perhaps I'm not that. And I began diving deeper into Christ cosmology. And I learned that all of us have a father. No one, it's like I didn't know anyone who would talk about it because that was completely absent. But I started finding out that I have a father and I can have a relationship with the Father. And within Godhead, there is a unit of three, and there is Christ, there is the King, and I can relate to God as the beloved. I can come to him as the lover, as the bride. And what that did for me, especially for my nervous system, was that, oh my goodness, I remember experiencing so much internal holding and support. I went from a singular consciousness that was just some random creation of the universe, having no relationship, no masculine anchor and support, to I get to be the daughter of God. I get to be the daughter of a father. And I get to embody the archetype of the bride and the lover to Christ. That just felt so good. And I'm not talking about through the orientation of religion, which I feel all of us, especially women in the personal development field, have this natural allergic reaction to, because intrinsically we feel the church empire has hidden so much truth from all of us and distorted the image of God and our relationship with God. So through that relationship, I started softening into what I call my original feminine identity. That instead of I'm the same as the masculine and I can be the masculine, I started polarizing. I started experiencing what it's like to be a daughter, which was something that was missing in my childhood because my dad was not a he was he was just not very fatherly. So the relationship was there was a lot of emotional neglect, and a lot of times I needed to parent him instead of experiencing that fatherly provision. So I learned and my body experienced a type of reparenting where I didn't need to be any masculine source for myself other than just being the receiver, being the feminine vessel, receiver, returning to my childlike innocence and playfulness, and just being able to rest in the arms of Papa, which is part of a crucial part of our feminine development that so many women do not have. Too many of us didn't experience the love and provision and protection of a father. And so many of us skip our childhood stages wanting to be the queen, wanting to be the goddess, wanting to be the divine feminine. We never learned what it was like to first receive from a masculine king that is here to give unconditionally. That layer, and then this is something I always say, our father is the first man in our lives. If we don't know what it's like to be a little daughter, to receive from a father who is whom we can be under his wings, there is no way that we will know how to receive our husband because that's the second most significant pan in our lives. But that level of safety, of feeling cherished, of feeling open and surrendered, and that level of trust, I can trust a masculine to hold me, to protect me, and to provide for me, needs to come from the father. And for all of us within this internal design of union, the feminine blueprint, we have our biological father and we have our heavenly father. So that completes that father daughter relationship, which has then allowed us to develop into the fullness of a healthy princess who is in touch with her desires, who's in touch with her femininity, who can then say, you know what? I feel safe to go into the world and meet my prince and meet my king and be his queen because I know what it's like to surrender my lead to that and at the same time co create with that king. So, that level of understanding, which was not mental, but it was completely visceral, unfolded layer by layer by layer through my relationship of coming home to God. And this is something that it's something that I definitely see a lot of women are being called to experience, and especially for women who were more in that goddess, divine feminine, or I am the universe type of space, where it is very depolarized. It is very disconnected from the body. Just because the feminine never ascends, she descends. She's the one that goes in, drops down into her heart, into her womb, into her yoni. Her power is really, the seat of her power is really in the womb, in the yoni, in the pelvic bowl. So she descends and he rises. So if we're always ascending and rising, we're actually checking out of our bodies, which the goddess space felt very disembodied to me for that reason. So I feel more and more women are being invited to go into our bodies, to descend into really like all of those parts of us that hold our feminine power, and at the same time to come back to a rightful relationship with the masculine, starting with God, not to replace him, not to be him, but to be by his side, to be in his heart, by his side, and be his queen. And that's just, yeah, that's a nutshell of the journey that I've been through with God.
Yeah. How has it reflected with your relationship with men? So, when you think back to being in relationship with your man or a man before this journey of union with God as father, as king, to your relationship with your man now,
Yeah.
what are kind of the key things that have shifted?
Oh my goodness. Tremendous. Previously, and I've been with the same man for in such a loving, loving, loving union for the last 10 years. So, and he's put up so much with me. Now that I look back, I'm just like, oh my goodness, did I really do this? Recently I actually wrote a post about the way that I used to relate to him was I was pretty controlling and rigid. So I because I was not in touch with my feminine essence, with the parts of me that are nourishing, loving, receptive, and vulnerable, surrender was tremendously difficult for me. So in the relationship, I almost related to him from the space of competition. Like if he said to me, "Oh, I'm bringing this really big sale for us," I would celebrate on the surface, but underneath I would be like, well, what makes him think that he can make more money? I'm gonna hustle just so that I can make more money, and I'm gonna do a big launch, and I'm gonna show like I am no less than him. There was always this underlying belief that being a woman means I am second best. It means I am the weaker race, and that was actually one of the reasons why I unconsciously chose to be that boss baby who was always hustling, forcing, because underneath that, I wanted to prove to myself, to the world, and to men that, I can just be as good as you, if not better. So even though I was not conscious of it, all of those layers were actually in our relationship, in the way that I related to him. And I remember because I was not in touch with my womanhood, I wasn't very nourishing. He would come home after like a really tiring hard day of work, and I wouldn't even like acknowledge him coming through the door. I'd just be like, "Okay, hi, there's some food in the fridge, or go find some food for your dinner." Or sometimes I would even like heat up my own dinner, and then I would completely neglect him. All of these were patterns actually from me witnessing my parents' marriage. It was very depolarized, and there was no depth in between my mom and dad. And there was literally like one person would heat up dinner, eat on his own or on her own, and the other person would just live a separate life. So you can be in marriage with someone but not be in union. And that happens because of the depolarization, because the man cannot access a level of emotional nourishment, surrender, and receptivity in his woman. So as long as we remain shut off to that within ourselves, he cannot access that layer. And the result is always, it's either going to show up as conflict or competition in a relationship, or it feels like there's just like two cocks in a relationship. There's no feminine. So over time, what's happened when I dedicated an entire year to just healing my God wound and father wound, I literally experienced so much remorse and guilt. I looked back at some of the some of the ways that I behaved in front of my man, and well, there was rightful remorse and tears. I just could not believe that I was, treating him in such a way where he could not access the woman in me because I could not access the woman in me. So over time, and this is a multiple layered work in progress, very nuanced process. Over time, I experience way more emotional depth with him. Whereas something like in the past, he would give me a birthday gift, and I'm just like, oh, thank you, honey. I thought I was receiving him, but I was actually receiving his chivalry and love into my mind. There was nothing in the body because I was so disconnected. So, the same example today is that, oh my goodness, when he gives me a gift or when he just kisses me and says, I love you in the morning, it's like my whole body literally feels that masculine love and potency and cherishment coming from the man, and I can feel his potency. And every cell and tissue of my body is just like, I just want more of it. I can feel the yearning of it. I can feel how much this is nourishing me and filling me, and I want more and more of it. So, whereas it used to be a mental receiving, now it is an embodied receiving. Tiny little things can just move me to tears. There is so much more emotional, sexual depth between the two of us, and I feel that the other day I wrote in my journal, I just feel like something opened up. Whereas before I related to my man through the layers of armor, and the armors have gone away, and the tinted glasses have been taken off. I can truly see him for the man that he is. I can truly appreciate and graciously receive all of him into me, into my body, into my heart and womb. And at the same time, he can feel the depth of me. Versus it's just like usually in the past, it was just like more intellectualized. I would express mentally what I wanted, what my desires were, but now he can actually feel me. He can feel my energy, and I can feel him. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful and deep shift that comes in so many layers.
What would you say? I feel like the reasons that we've been disconnected from God are part of the agenda, so
Yeah,
to speak, that we spoke about
yeah,
earlier, kind of that relationship, so that we're um, constantly seeking something that we can't really fulfill. Like you spoke about your relationship earlier on in the conversation before healing this God relationship, that there was something missing. There was always something missing. And I feel like that has been a deliberate severing or agenda placed on us in the world, or the
yes,
programming or the narrative, so that we're never fully fulfilled. We're always kind of in a hamster wheel trying to get
yes,
something we can never get.
yeah.
What would you say is a first step to reconnecting that
Mm, yeah,
relationship? Yeah. Just for
yeah. I do
people listening, like,
remember.
is there in my experience, it was like I was wanting union with a man.
Yeah,
And now I look back and I think about relationship with men when I was in that goddess world, and I was so condescending. I was so critical.
yes,
I
yes,
was like competing, trying to be the same, all that kind of stuff. And then it was like somehow I came upon teachings of where we're meant to complement each other, not compete with
yeah,
each other. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden it was like Jesus was pursuing me. Like it was
yes,
everywhere. Jesus was everywhere. And so for you, what does that entry point look like to coming back?
Whoa, yeah, I would say very similar. I was super disrespectful to men, just in general. I used to write these Facebook posts, just calling men out, believing like I was the better between the two, all kinds of things. And I remember just receiving so many comments and likes from women who were trauma bonding, who were like, "Yeah, you go, girl." And that tribalism is really a reflection. It's a shadow to our devotion because we are born, our essence is devotion. We're born to devote to men, devote to God, devote to sisterhood. But when that is so displaced, because we are relating to men and masculine from our pain body, we are then displacing our devotion. So I remember seeking, always seeking. And I was willing to do whatever it takes to find that missing piece. I went literally from every single modality within the personal development space to traveling to South America, Central America, drinking ayahuasca with shamans and doing plant medicine, journey into the multiverse. You know, everything that I did would fulfill me for a while, but it was more like a cover because after a few months, I would feel that emptiness again. And it was just never fulfilled. So when when I started getting to know God, it was a very similar experience as yours. I didn't really actively pursue God. He started pursuing me in the form of Jesus Christ. He started pursuing me. I started seeing him everywhere. I started witnessing women that I was friends with who were seven figure boss babe coaches who all of a sudden started talking about needing a father and needing a king and no longer wanting to be the masculine. And it was so many things were happening at that time. And that was when 2020 happened, when so the veil has really dropped in 2020. It was everything was right in front of you. And I was simultaneously going down all of these rabbit holes. And I started realizing upon gathering all of the information that what if I what if I believed I was so awakened and enlightened and above, all of whatever. What if I actually was part of the system and that was being played by the system? What if everything I believed in was a lie? So I would say the first step was the same yearning to pursue truth, to always want to be seeking, if it is a genuine yearning, will always lead you back to the heart of God, because he will not stop pursuing each one of us until we are led back to his heart. A lot of women, though, I have seen stop right there because there is a certain threshold that we need to cross in order to shift from the identity of I am the universe, I am goddess, into I am willingly giving up my false power and identity to go through a type of death that is needed to be reborn in God as His. So there is a really big threshold there. But what led me, honestly, through the threshold and that entire excruciating identity death was I said to myself, I will not rest until I find that missing piece. And coincidentally,
Mm.
later on, when I was in communion with God, when I was in prayer, He said to me, well, why do you think you have this yearning? Why do you think that you feel in your heart you always want to be seeking something? I put that desire in your heart. Most beautiful moment. I was just like, oh my goodness. We will never stop seeking because
Mm.
he put that desire in our heart. And at the same time, we can seek in all of the wrong places. But at the end of the day, if we keep looking, if we're willing to drop through all of these layers, God is waiting on the other side.
Mm. Does anything come up for you of I'm going to use the word dangers, but I'm thinking about, when I was seeking in the New Age, and it would be like tarot and astrology
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Akashic records and psychics. And, I had all of these anchor points, and
Hmm.
now I don't have any of them. And there is this um, almost like, it's like this final death of control
Oh,
in me
yeah.
because I don't have these anchor points. So it's absolute
Yeah.
uncertainty. Well, I have the anchor point of Jesus, but Jesus,
Yeah.
and that, when I think about like manifestation and a lot of the teachings in New Age, some of them are in the Bible,
Hmm.
and they can be quite similar, like that, like, manifestation, all that kind of stuff. And so there's such a strong anchor point in Jesus and God. But the old part of me that's still dying is like, but we need to talk to a psychic so she can tell you
Mm.
exactly what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, does there anything come up for you around
Yeah.
dangers in that?
Yeah, so much. And again, this is a similar journey. I was anchored in all of those as well. I actually taught a lot of them. Um, Relationship with God is such a multi-layered, multi-dimensional, gradual, lifelong process. It's a continuation of us deepening into him and simultaneously deepening into who we are as a woman and our feminine identity in him. So I went through this really painful phase in which I was like, oh my God, I've invested so much in these trainings. I'm so good. I'm so good at it. I have all these programs. Like, I don't want to give it up. Eventually, what's happened was that I when I got to a point where he literally became the way, the truth, and the life for me, I realized I everything that I was looking for in those modalities, I have an abundance of that in him. And that feeling was almost like you don't need to settle for crumbs, for pieces of incomplete information when you have me. And this is like when it's super nuanced because there is a differentiation between like a lot of women are unwilling to even want to go there just because there is that level of church hurt and empire, the institution of church empire and religious trauma that's embedded in our collective psyche. And I was really resistant to that until I was willing to shift my relationship with that to can I just look at it and how this is impacting my relationship with God instead of nope, God, Jesus, they're all part of the bad, they're all part of the religious empire. So that spaciousness is needed in order for us to actually come into the right relationship with that. Um, there was this gradual process in which I was still holding on to something, some modalities. But what I did was that I would actually submit each to him and just ask, is this something that I get to keep? Is this something that, that I can tweak, or is this something that I need to let go of? And over time, just like with a man, our relationship with God is built on mutual trust. It is built on mutual I'm just going to get to know you a little bit more before I'm going to surrender that layer. And again, religion would say something like it's all about blind faith. Just follow the word of God or else he's going to condemn you, he's going to judge you. There is that very black and white linear type of relationship that is trying to um, contaminate the true nonlinear, multidimensional love affair that God wants to have with us. In my experience, and I've also spoken to so many women who have been through this journey, it's never, if you don't give up your tarot card right now, I'm just going to throw you in hell. There is never that layer. That is the layer of empire mind control that wants you to not trust God. If anything, it's been a process of, okay, can I get to know you a little bit more, reveal more of yourself to me? And then he holds me through this integration process of, I want you to look at this. I want you to feel into it. And I want you to feel if you trust me enough to receive this insight from me instead of from the tarot card or the psychic, right? Or the Akashic records. Layer by layer, piece by piece, he has helped me shift my attention and my trust in everything that I was practicing onto him. There was never a moment that was forced, that was pushed, that was out of my comfort zone. Comfort zone meaning my capacity to receive, and that was out of my willingness. Everything was based on my agency of how much I yearned for him, how much I wanted to get to know him, and how big of a role he wanted to play in my life. Once I exercised and claimed that level of desire, he then began working with me through a very deep integrational process. So I don't know if this answers the question, but I feel that most women, we are so afraid to surrender and let go to God. And we need to hold on to our little knowledge, little tools. All the psychics, by the way, I had a page of different psychics that I needed to consult over different things from health to love to money. So just putting it out there. It's okay to feel uncertain. It's okay to feel really scared that I want to hold on to it because this is giving me safety. It's okay to feel the fear of, I don't know what's going to happen if I cross the threshold and get to the other side and I'm going to lose my identity and all of these things. It's okay. That fear is not a bad thing. It's just your nervous system signaling you are entering into an unfamiliar territory. But at the same time, it's always about coming back to the part of you that is feeling the call, even if you don't know where that's going to lead, what the process is going to look like. And there's no way that your mind can even conceptualize what the process looks like. It's so different. That death and slow surrender process looks so, so, so different from woman to woman. There's no way for us to know. But what I do know for sure and what I'm anchored in is the knowing that as long as we have a desire, of wanting to know more beyond what's in front of us, as long as we have a desire of wanting to get to know God, He works through miracles. He moves mountains just to pursue us and give us just the right message, the right messenger, the right book, the right Facebook post, whatever it is, it's going to happen. And through the process is when we start to slowly trust Him and build that safety as the feminine in the masculine, that we then slowly relinquish our need to control, which actually like glues us to the entire, to the hyper masculine drive. We are in the hyper masculine drive because we refuse to surrender. We refuse to let go of control. We need that safety because we have never experienced being held and receiving that safety from a deep relationship that is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So I would say if you're more in the beginning of the process, just allow yourself to layer by layer, slowly build that relationship, build that trust, and ask every single day. Pretend this is a relationship with a man. Pretend there is a person that you're talking to. It's not just some vague energy bubble. Talk to him, ask him, how do I get to know you better? How can I deepen into this relationship? What resource can you send me? Can you reveal more of yourself to me? All of these things, keep asking. He will never ever abandon his pursuit of us because that's what he created us for, to give and to love.
I love that pursuit of us because that's like the masculine, a man he pursues.
Yeah,
And when
absolutely.
we're attuned to our feminine, we can feel that pursuit from
Deeply.
a man and not try to take it from him. Um, what comes up for you around money and God?
Yeah. So when I look at money, and my relationship with money has shifted so tremendously over the years. In the past, it was more of that control, extractive, linear and transitional paradigm, right? I sell a service, I get money in exchange. Over time, through this inner recalibration in my relationship with masculine, I've eased into the paradigm of relating to money from the space of intimacy. Sometimes I use the term I relate to money as the lover, not in the sense as I'm just going to put on some sexy music and dance to, I don't know, when I'm doing accounting or something, right? Not that level, even though there's nothing wrong with it. I can receive money as a loving partner, masculine partner for me. So the way that I look at the non-human masculine principles in our lives, right? The business structure, strategies, money, our calendar, our, taking action, all of these are masculine principles. Each masculine principle actually has its own unique consciousness. Even though it's not a man, it's usually harder for women to think like, oh, there's relationship with man, that's easy. But relationship with money, well, what does that mean? Each
Mm.
masculine portal allows us to access a level of masculine provision from God, whether it's money or a man or a husband. And each masculine principle or portal actually has its own consciousness. So the way that I approach money is very somatic. And that also happened after I started deepening into my body years ago. I used to relate to money from a very mental place. Like, this is the figure that I want to reach. I'm going to work really hard for that, right? I'm going to hustle for
Mm.
that. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
these days, because I've healed so many aspects of my relationship with the masculine, I no longer relate to any masculine, whether it's my man or money, from my pain body of I'm better. I need to control you. I want to manipulate you so you can show up a certain way for me. I relate to the masculine as I am your receiving feminine. I am in a
Mm.
safe, spacious, and easeful relationship with you. So, how can I show up for you so that I can receive more of you in a way that deepens me into my devotion? And this is a very, very, very different type of relational dynamic with money. Um, the way that I teach women money is usually through, there are several layers. One layer is this relational layer. And the other layer is really, one of my teachers says that the feminine doesn't give, she gives back. So the feminine doesn't give, she gives back. The essence of the masculine is giving. The essence of the feminine is receiving, although there are so many more nuances to that statement. When I relate to money, and I am living in Christ cosmology, in this co-creative universe where everything is seeking more life and everything has been provided for. When I look at money, I don't look at money as something like I need to go out and make it. I need to make it
Mm.
happen. It's more that God has already been providing for me, whether it's in the form of money or more clients or ideas or inspirations. How can I receive it? Which parts of me are resisting to that higher level receivership portal? Which parts of me are feeling safe to receive that and to claim the desire of that? So I recently was in Miami several times and I was looking at these beautiful mango trees that were just all over the side of the road for free. For free. You could just go pick up mangoes, and they're like the juiciest mangoes that you can have.
Mm.
And I had this epiphany of, oh my goodness, like nature is so wealthy. Like I look at the trees, I look at the vegetation, everything is thriving. Everything is just like receiving the penetration of the sun, the nourishment of the rain, taking from the fertile soil. Everything in nature, unless you put a stop to it, is always seeking more life, more and more and more life. Everything in nature is always seeking that expansion. And if we go back to And I read scripture, both the Old Testament and the New Testament. The ancient Hebrew saints who wrote the books in the Old Testament had a very different relationship with nature. Our modern day relationship with Mama Earth is that, well, I get to exploit her. She's just here to serve me. Very, very different in the ancient times, in the Hebraic traditions. The saints related to nature as it is as important as human beings. We are all an ecosystem. We are all giving and receiving from one another. Like the tree is giving the oxygen and we're receiving the oxygen. The sun is shining on the earth and the flower is receiving the sun. The leaves that are decaying is actually providing nourishment for the soil and fertilizing the soil. And the soil is in turn nourishing us. There is this cycle of life of giving and receiving, which is the very nature of God, which is the very heart of Christ. It is that giving, receiving type of relationship that is embedded, that essence that's embedded in all of us. So in Christ cosmology, we are actually part of nature. We are part of this ecosystem called nature. And when I look at nature, every living organism is encoded with the with the yearning to seek more life, the capacity to seek more life. And I had that moment of like the light bulb moment of, oh my goodness, lack and scarcity then are actually not a part of our original design. They're not part of our DNA encoding of seeking more life. These are false ideas and templates that have been deeply planted inside of us to stop us seeking more life. And the moment I realized that, it took me back to like some moments where, and I shared, I live in a place where I need to drive like 2 hours in order to get to a store. And a lot of times when I walk into a store, because it's very inconvenient. The store, all of the shelves are empty. And I've been noticing whenever I experience lack, whether it's external lack, like I drive for 2 hours, the store has nothing in it, or internal lack, like when I'm experiencing an upper limit, kind of like, oh, I feel that I deeply feel that this is a course I should be investing into. And then there's the story of like, oh, but it's too expensive. You should hold on to your money. Anytime when I experience lack, my body actually experiences energetic contractions. And this is something I've been noticing over and over, especially in the past 2 years. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, the energetic contraction is just saying, oh, maybe that thing is too expensive, you know? And then I started deepening into it and doing the deeper somatic work. And I'm like, no, that part of me is actually giving me a choice. It is pointing me back to my agency. It is catalyzing and letting me know that you are going against your nature. You are violating your very blueprint of being a being of wealth and a being of abundance and a being that is always seeking more expansion and more life, a being that is infinitely already provided for, but you need to claim your receivership to that because God is always providing. So I feel that when that layer really dropped, when I integrated that layer these days, when I experience contractions around lack, around money, I simply come back to myself and let myself know that, oh, this is a moment for me to exercise agency. I can either choose this false agenda of lack and scarcity that is not part of my natural design, or I can come back to the woman and to the feminine vessel that God has created me to be and anchor in my blueprint, my original blueprint, and then choose from that space. Choose from I am already provided for as the feminine by the masculine. I do not give, but I am giving back. And with money, we do see it as a form of exchange. So, what can I give back? What can I give back to my community? What can I give back to my clients? What can I give back to the world? And this is a very, very different type of relationship in terms of coming into our rightful relationship with creation, our creational processes of our sales, marketing, and launching, not coming
Mm.
from scarcity, urgency, restlessness, like I need to pump this offer out so I can make some money to pay bills. But I am already a being of wealth and I'm anchored in this safety. I all of my experiences, my gifts, my whatever, like all of the things that I'm good at have already been provided for by God to me. So what can I give back to my
Mm.
community that will allow a higher level of receivership with money in partnership with the masculine consciousness of money? And that's something that it's a very, very different type of paradigm than the extractive linear, like I need to sell something, I need to put in more time, and then I'm going to get paid for that. And I feel for women, it again taps us into that deep relational nature of understanding, embodying not just the intimate relationship with the masculine, showing up as his feminine vessel, but this also asks us to be in that feminine descent, to be able
Mm.
to root in the heart, in the womb, and simply be in our feminine consciousness of I am already provided for and I have all the spaciousness inside of me that can receive on that level. Yeah, so that's my relationship with money.
When you went down your rabbit holes, we'll call it the beginning of 2020, your conspiracy theories, um, were there any that came up for you around money? Any distortions that came up around money?
I would say that the in our world, money is very, it comes with a really high charge because we all have somatic imprints of survival, scarcity, famine, all types of trauma, right? That's ancestral. So money is a neutral energy, neutral masculine energy.
Mm.
That is the sword that can be used to cut people and hurt people, or it can be used to pave the way and to elevate someone's life. So in our world, and during the time of the rabbit holes, I definitely saw that those that are in control of the agendas of the world have been using money in such a way for that is out of alignment, that's for evil purposes, out of greed, out of gluttony, out of the need to oppress others. And they have also simultaneously created this illusion, the I'm not even going to call it a mindset, it's really a template of illusion that there is not enough money in this world and we need to step on each other's toes and do whatever it takes to get more money. And meanwhile, these, whatever you can call it, the 1% elites are holding on to most of the resources on earth, creating the illusion of scarcity. So that was a layer that was really revealed to me during those years of going down the rabbit holes. And what that allowed me to reflect on was my previous template with money. Even though I thought I was the boss babe, I was creating good cash flow, right? Was actually buying into that template of scarcity, extraction, and the linear paradigm of like, oh my God, like I was in a very transitional type of relationship with money. It was very extractive. I would sit at the computer until middle of the night so that I could finish the tasks on my checklist. And I was the type of woman that would wake up in the middle of the night agonizing over, oh my goodness, there's a mistake on my sales page and people are not going to buy. So that there was that scarcity in my relationship with money in that template, even though I made good money. And that was part of that global conditioning or that programming of scarcity, which is a false template. Just like the template of singular consciousness as opposed to union is a false template that traps you really in a world where you are your own worst enemy Because if I am coming from the space of scarcity and I need to go out and get whatever I can get, I'm not going to rest. But so that was a huge layer of distortion around money that came up for me. Versus these days, the moment I surrendered money to God and every single component of my business to God, it became something that feels way more natural, way more intimate, and way more in alignment. I no longer see it as I need to go out and make money and get money. It's rather I focus on myself and my receptivity, and it's rather so I have a desire for, let's say, whatever, a bigger bigger figure or whatever it is. I get to claim the bigness of that desire if it is a true heart's desire. And then I ask myself, how can I calibrate to that level of receivership that is guided by God, that is in God, and allow him to pave the way. So it takes so much pressure off of my need to figure out how to make money and how to get more money. And I simply need to, like what we shared in the very beginning of this podcast, I am not the one that is figure things out. I'm not in a driver's seat. God takes charge of my business. My job is to stay open in my softness, in my openness, and I'm deeply attuned to him every step of the way. And I allow him to move through me and move me into where I need to be, who I need to talk to, what actions I need to take. So, in that sense, then I feel this is how God has created, how has designed us to receive abundance, whether it's money or love. And this is how he can truly co-create with us so that we can always find the safety and trust to follow his lead.
Beautiful, beautiful. What has been your biggest lesson along the way?
Oh, there's so many. Okay. So the biggest lesson is actually something that I have been working through in the past year, which is um, to return to my body more and more and more, and to actually reclaim my body. In the beginning, I thought it was just to shift my diet, my lifestyle, stop taking birth control pill, and I've been uncovering so many deep layers of um, even like numbness or lack of trust or feelings of betrayal. And these are the deeply embedded layers that actually live inside of in our yoni lips, in our womb, in our fascia. So what I have been working on is holding myself in a space that I am not outsourcing anymore, looking to find the perfect, I don't know, diet, find the perfect exercise that's going to help me, look a certain way, find the perfect supplement, but to truly reclaim the sovereignty of my body and to attune to what are the stories, what are the layers, what are the whispers of my woman and of the women who have come before me that are deeply living in my body right now. How can I return to the root and origin of my woman and honor her every step of the way? And that's been an ongoing lesson that just keeps taking me deeper and deeper.
Mm, beautiful. Is there anything on your heart that you want to add to this conversation, love, before we close? Anything that we haven't touched on in our
Um,
spiral? It felt like a spiral.
it's definitely a spiral because we've come like a full circle. I would say that at any time when this journey feels a little too overwhelming or you're not sure where to look, our feminine biology truly holds the key to everything. In the beginning, when I gave the example of our entire birthing process of being impregnated by the masculine and birthing the newborn, anytime when we feel like we're looking for answers elsewhere, it's always an invitation for us to return to our feminine biology and also our original feminine design, which is that deeply relational, union based design with the masculine. So come back to the body, not just through lifestyle changes, taking care of, your diet, going to spa. That is one level. But actually to come back deep into your woman, which is your womb, your yoni lips, your ovaries, all of these parts of you that are holding the unique consciousness and feminine soul of the woman that you are. Come back to these parts, connect with these parts, and allow them to guide you in this journey.
Is there anything that comes up for you? And I know it's a journey. It's a journey to connecting to your womb, to your yoni. And, from my own personal experience, it's very, very important to have support
Yeah.
when you're doing that type of work. But are there any kind of very basic ways that you can start to connect even to your womb? Or are there things that you can take out to stop you from disconnecting to your womb? Are there
Absolutely.
distractions or, yeah?
Absolutely. Several really simple things that are coming up. First is to to allow ourselves to consciously connect to the earth and her primordial energy, and to even witness how earth is so cyclical, going through her seasons, and knowing that we are part of that primordial feminine consciousness of the earth. We are very cyclical and seasonal. So start by looking at the earth and then see, well, what are the seasons of my life, my business, my relationship? Am I honoring my inner seasons, or am I going against it? That's one thing. Even just sitting on earth can feel incredibly nourishing. Another thing to look to, which is something I'm also supporting my clients with right now, it just seems everyone is in this space, is to pay deeper attention to our bleed. Just because it serves such an important function, and I'm not even going to list all of the reasons why we bleed. It is on many ways it is a manifestation of a woman's health, our vitality, our feminine aliveness, and just how deeply attuned we are to our womanhood. So start to pay attention to how you feel throughout the 4 phases of your bleed. What is your body requiring of you, and is this something that you're honoring? What is coming up, especially during the bleed? The time when we're actively bleeding is a time when the body is actively letting go, right? That's when the lining of our womb is actually shedding. So, especially during that time, that's usually a time when we are very, I'm going to say, connected to the shadows, to the things that we don't necessarily want to look at, but these are the things that need to be looked at. So during this time for me is a time when, let's say, if I'm pushing myself, if I'm over pushing myself or over extending myself in my business, or if there's a conversation that needs to be had in my relationship and I'm just avoiding it, these are the times that these things come up. To actively pay attention to not what you are receiving, but also what you're letting go of and what you're allowing yourself to let go of, so that you can create that spaciousness for you to drop deeper into yourself, into your womanhood. That is super important. And to overall, we've got to honor our bodies' yes and no's, and most women have learned to numb the voice of the body, even if we hear it. And I'm going to say we all hear it. We all know when we're so exhausted that we can't push through the lunch, we do it anyway. We all know when we're too tired to go on Instagram and, I don't know, post one more post, we do it anyway, because we tend to operate from the parts of us that don't feel very safe, that are feeling like we're missing out, that are coming from the space of urgency and restlessness and scarcity. So tune into the body's yes and no. What is your yes when it comes to men? What is your yes when it comes to your clients, your creations in your business, your offers, your money? What are your powerful no's? And start by honoring these things.
Yeah, beautiful. Where can everybody find you, and do you have any offerings coming up?
Yes. So I'm going to say like probably the most active place I am is on Instagram right now. That's Juliet _Tang. And I actually just recorded a month ago. I recorded 2 free master classes for women because I keep getting these questions over and over. I recorded these 2 master classes for women who are interested in learning more about how to interweave body somatics, relational intimacy with the masculine into their into their business strategies, and also money. So there's like almost 4 hours of recording. It's called Body Attuned Business, and it's currently just in my link and bio in Instagram that you can just opt in and just watch the videos. It also comes with 2 free books, 2 free workbooks. I'm also active on Facebook. It's just under my name, and I have a Facebook group, Love Affair with the King. I'm currently, because I am moving, I'm actually not doing huge launches, but there is a wait list for one-on-one for business, somatic business mentorship. That is also in my Instagram bio. So for anyone who wants to explore, they can always go to that link and then just get more information that way.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. And it'll be in the show notes where everybody can get your links and all that kind of magic and medicine. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So happy we had this deep conversation.
Thank you so much for joining me for an episode of the Phoenix Rising podcast. Please like, share, download, subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you next week for another episode on the Phoenix Rising podcast. Sending so much love.